Welcome to Saged Melanated, conversations for healing and empowerment. In this episode, we're peeling back the layers of a topic often shrouded in mystery and intrigue: witches. But before we dive into the cauldron of knowledge, let's start by understanding what witchcraft is all about. In fact, witchcraft is a deeply personal and diverse practice. It can include spell work, divination, herbalism, and connecting with the unseen forces of the universe. Many witches follow the Wiccan tradition, but there are countless paths and traditions within this realm of witchcraft. Witches were perceived as evil beings in early Christians in Europe, inspiring the iconic Halloween figure, right? The little ugly one with that pointy hat on, with that giant wart on her nose. Like, what? Images of witches have appeared in various forms throughout history. From evil, wart-nosed women huddling over a cauldron of boiling liquid to hag-faced cackled beings riding through the sky on brooms wearing pointy hats. However, in pop culture, the witch has been portrayed as a benevolent, nose-twitching suburban housewife. Oh, we all know what that show is. I loved it, though. An awkward teenager learning to control her powers, and a trio of charmed sisters battling the forces of evil. I love that show, too, by the way. The real history of witches, however, is dark, and often for the witches, deadly. Early witches were people who practiced witchcraft, using magic spells and calling upon spirits for help or to bring about change. Some witches were thought to be pagans doing the devil's work. Many, however, were simply natural healers or so-called wise women whose choice of profession was simply misunderstood. Today, we'll delve into the enchanting world of witches, a topic that intersects with spirituality and the mystical. Now, some of you may be familiar with our guest today, Lizzy Cangro, who was previously on the Melanin Wellness podcast when we discussed quieting our inner mean girl, which coincided perfectly with her inaugural book, Reclaim the Rebel: 12 Rebellious Acts to Achieve Unconditional Love for Your Body. And it was an amazing episode. So today, she is back with her exciting new book titled Reclaim the Witch. Unlock your power, remember your magic, and love your body. And I am super excited to explore the history, stereotypes, and the empowering aspects of witchcraft with her. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again, Miss Lizzy Cangro. How are you?
Oh my gosh, chills. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate that introduction. That was amazing. So it's good to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad, and so honored that you came back, right? Because not everybody does come back. And, it's not always that type of vibe, but you and I had that vibe even the first show. And I felt like if you guys listened to that first episode between her and I felt like there was so much we did not get to explore. And so I feel honored that we have the opportunity to explore things, in more in depth. Now, I'm definitely excited to dig into what brought about this new book and all the changes that have happened with you since our last recording. But before we begin the show, as we have always, we will begin with our 30 seconds of gratitude. Lizzy?
Well, I am very, very grateful to everybody who is here listening. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to be in this space with you and to share this discussion. I think it's a very important discussion and a very deep discussion. So I appreciate you choosing to be here. You could be anywhere in the world right now and you are listening to this. So thank you. I'm also super grateful for you for having me on here again. It was amazing being on the first time and just vibing with you and just being able to connect that way. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm very grateful to everybody who has supported me in the launch of Reclaim the Witch. Again, this is a community effort to get something like this out into the world and to spread that kind of medicine. So I really appreciate everybody's support for making that happen.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate your gratitude. So that is one thing that I'm so grateful for, because when I hear other people's gratitude, it pours into me in a way that I don't think that they quite realize or understand, because it does start to trigger things that sometimes we may forget. And, they may be big, they may be small, but we may tend to forget. And so I am so grateful for your gratitude. I am grateful for the power of collaboration, right? Because I have met some amazing people, made some amazing connections, you guys, since I started doing the Melanin Wellness podcast a while ago. And I'm so grateful for this connection. And I'm also grateful for the new journey that I am upon, which has given birth to this new project, this new show. I definitely felt like that it was time for me to start reclaiming my inner witch, because there was so many things that I was not being true to, and I was not happy. And while I know that the previous, ventures pointed me in this direction, however, I was always afraid to go there. And I'm so grateful for courage to do that. Now, y'all know how we do. Y'all know that was more than 30 seconds, but it's all good. Anytime you are giving gratitude, you can never spend enough time doing that. And it's never happening at a set time of day or set amount of times a day. You can break out in gratitude at any point in time of day, because it automatically shifts your energy when you do that. So anytime you start feeling kind of down about something, immediately think of at least one thing that you're grateful for, and I promise you your whole mood will change, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love that, because I feel like gratitude, I had a sort of aha moment about gratitude the other day, and I realized that gratitude is something that comes from the heart, right? And it's a vibration, it's a frequency that comes from the heart. And it's kind of like echolocation, in that it bounces off of the people, the things that you are grateful for. And just like, echolocation, that frequency comes back to you. And it is that kind of like elevation of gratitude, elevating your frequency and elevating someone else's frequency, that I think we really feel in our hearts. And, it's just so powerful, such a powerful practice to be in gratitude.
It really is. It really is. And it positively changed my life. I can say that. And, if you've listened to the Melanin Wellness podcast, you know that I always let off every episode this way. And I am a firm believer that gratitude changes your complete vibration. And the things that you want are on that higher vibration. They are. Again, I can just only speak from self and from experience. I know it because I'm living it right now.
And that's
All
the
right.
best place to work from, right? Is living from that experience,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can share that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so before we get started, guys, right after our 30 seconds of gratitude, we're going to just do a quick energetic cleanse. I'm just burning my sage a little bit because it burned out. So we're just going to do a little energetic cleanse.
I love that.
Yes.
I
And
have
we are cleansing our space, cleansing our energy, preparing our minds and ourselves to bring forth and to accept and receive all of the energy and all of this information, because this is definitely a deep topic. So now let's get into a little bit about witchcraft. So Lizzy, can you give us your definition of witchcraft?
And as you said at the beginning, I feel like witchcraft and witches and what constitutes a witch is a very personal definition. Now, to me, a witch is a woman who is in her personal power. She is aligned with the cycles and the seasons of nature. She connects to her higher self, the universe, however you want to articulate that. And she is a force of nature that cannot be shaken, despite everything kind of life happening around her. She is able to source from within and nurture both her needs and the needs of the community, the people, spaces, and places that are surrounding her.
I love that. I love that. And well, then y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all, I guess I'm a witch because, to be clear,
There you go.
to be clear, I have never in my entire life felt more powerful than I do right now. I have never in my life felt more in tune with myself, with who I am. And I know that I have done the work in order to arrive here. I've done my shadow work. I have addressed my own problematicness. And I think that that is one of the ways that you can get to your inner power, right? So we're going to just go through the definition of what most people have for witchcraft. So witchcraft at its core is a spiritual practice, and I do agree with that, that draws on the power of nature, intuition, and the elements. It's very similar to what you said. It's about harnessing energy to create positive change, healing, and personal empowerment. Contrary to some popular misconceptions, witchcraft is not synonymous with evil or black magic. And it's so funny because that when you say the word witch, that's what people automatically equate it to. And I can remember, being a young girl, I grew up in a very religious family. And so I can tell you right now that the way that I live my life and the things that I practice, oh, they definitely view it as witchcraft. Oh, I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. But I'm at the point where I don't care.
Right. And that is empowerment.
Mm-hmm. It
And
is.
and it's not that you're saying, oh, you're wrong, or I don't respect your beliefs. It's just saying this is where I'm at, and I am unshakable in it. Like, this is, and I'm going to use this, my power, for good. And and being okay with that, and really owning the word witch, I think, is in itself like a very audacious and brave thing to do, because, as you say, we have been brought up in a culture or families or both where witch has been really demonized
Yes.
and seen as evil, seen as bad, seen as dark, dangerous. And that was the whole point of titling the book Reclaim the Witch, is that we are literally reclaiming that as a word. Because I could have honestly called the book Reclaim the Goddess, Reclaim
Mm-hmm.
your higher self. And I didn't want to do that, because those are words that are bandied about so often on social media to kind of
Yep.
promote products and programs, because they're seen as desirable and
Yes.
it's soft. And whereas witch, that is a word that we need to reclaim, in my opinion, because it is such a important word and archetype for women to really embrace.
I agree. I agree because, it's funny that you talk about the things that are, you know, basically used as buzzwords. And to me, they are just so overused and so overdone. Another one is feminine energy.
Mm.
And when they describe feminine energy, they typically are talking about this girly kind of people pleasing kind of, and please, ladies, don't take no offense to this though, but that is kind of what they're referring to. But what they often forget about is the alchemist, the dark feminine. And it's funny because before I even knew what dark feminine energy was, I always knew that that's who I was. I was afraid to walk in it. I didn't know how to do it, but I have learned. And when I stopped trying to, and I kept trying to fit myself in this feminine, this little sweet, soft feminine energy box. And every time I tried it, it just would not fit. It didn't work. It wasn't me. It came across as inauthentic, and I was always drained. That's because I wasn't being me. But when I really embraced that dark feminine energy, and let's be clear, guys, When we say dark feminine energy, nobody's talking about walking around casting evil spells on people, wishing harm on nobody. Like, let's get that all the way understood. When you are a dark feminine, or you are a quote unquote a witch, because to be clear, if you don't conform to the traditional standards, you're considered a witch. So if you believe in herbalism, and I am an herbalist, by the way. If you believe in manifestation, they often feel like you're a witch. If you believe in some forms of meditation, sometimes even yoga, they think that you're doing some type of devil worship or rituals. And I think it's absolutely nonsensical, because all of those things are very much a part of my daily life and my daily self-care. And it allows me to be the best version of myself. So what would you say to a woman who knows she's a dark feminine, who knows she has dark feminine energy? What would you say to her about how to go ahead and start reclaiming your inner witch? Like, it's all right. It's cool.
Well, I would say that the greatest gift that you could ever give anybody with whom you're in a relationship is to show up authentically as yourself. And so really it's a matter of, what is it costing you to not show up as your true self? And what would be possible if you did show up authentically? And how would that make you feel? And how would that benefit the world by you shining yourself in that light? Because I think what we're afraid of is we're afraid ultimately of judgment from others. And when we realize that the people who love us and know us, and people will know us more when we show up authentically, they will see us for who we are. And the people who don't, then they're not our people, and that's okay. And so really, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing others a disservice if you are not embracing that dark feminine energy that you're feeling. Ultimately, yeah.
It's so funny, because all of those questions that you posed, that's shadow work. Right? Because what you're doing is you are saying, what if this? How would I show up like that? How would this feel? And it's unadulterated. And that's the beauty of something like shadow work. It's unadulterated. Like, this is you talking to you and being real with yourself. And I think that so many of us have been discouraged from doing that. So many women are discouraged with being real. We are asked to please everyone else all the time, while putting our own desires, wants, needs, and even care of self on the back burner all the time. And so it's almost like right now I am watching an awakening of sorts, not just for myself, but just all across, like people I see in person, people I see on social media. It's like there's just this awakening that's happening, and it's really awesome and amazing to see so many people coming into their own. Like, would you agree? Do you see the same thing that I'm seeing?
100%. Excuse me. And as you were saying that, I could feel that in my body. It just felt so expansive and so true that this is what's happening. And I think there's kind of almost a tipping point where women they're rebelling against what we've been told and sold in terms of how we should behave, how we should look, how we should live our lives, and going, oh, I have a choice. I have a choice. And the choice that I have been making has served me up until this point, but it's not serving me anymore. And I'm going to choose something different. And that is bold and brave and incredible. And yes, I see that from my friends. I see that from my clients. I see that on social media. I see that, wherever. More and more women are waking up to their own ability to choose the life that they want.
You know what? It's so funny that you said that, that part about where it's like, okay, this served me up until this point, but this ain't serving me no more. Because I just did a LinkedIn live audio room with a friend of mine yesterday, and we talked about this very thing about how you go through different phases in your life, and what may have been what set your soul on fire then may no longer be now in this next chapter of life. And I'm going through that right now. And like, when I tell y'all, it is just so much fun. I am having the absolute time of my life right now, because all of the things that I did previously, I put, like, first of all, I went into a career that I did not want to go into. I went into that career because basically my family told me to. There's a lot of money in it, and we're going through a technology boom, but I positively hated information technology. I hated I hated it. I was miserable. I felt like I was being suffocated every day when I had to go to work. And then when my husband and I started having our youngest children, I then became a stay-at-home mom. Our deal was, when we start having kids, you're gonna stay at home with the kids while they're little until they go off to school. Well, it kind of worked on and off, because I stayed home with the children. I raised the kids. I put me to the side, and I took care of my family. There was so much joy in that for me. I absolutely loved it. I loved being able to be that constant for my children, and it was amazing. But I was still stifling who I was, because, again, like you said, you don't want that judgment. You don't want, to hear what those that you love and care about have to say. You don't want them to say anything negative. And I've been a people pleaser my whole life at this point. At this point, I'm still people pleasing, right? And so I wanted to do what my parents wanted to, what I thought would make them proud and make them happy. And I remember, like, within this last year, it started happening a few years ago. And I want to say that the catalyst to me really just, like, I'm going to be honest, those who have known me my whole life probably think I'm having a midlife crisis right now. I want to tell you that right now, because I am just wide open, okay? But I'm not having a midlife crisis. I have finally awakened and realized, you know what? When it was time for me to be that woman in the corporate space, that's who I was. When it was time for me to be a stay-at-home mom and baking cookies from scratch and taking the kids all over the place. And now I'm still taking the kids all over the place, but they're older now, so they're off in school. But where I am right now, like, when that veil was lifted, is one of those things you can't unsee.
Mm.
You cannot unsee it. Like, once you are awakened, you can never go back to sleep again on this. And so it is so awesome watching it. So can you tell us about when you had your moment, when you woke up and it was like, I will never be the same woman I was again?
Well, I don't think there was an exact moment, to be honest.
Mm.
Um, but I feel like I've been on this path and on this journey to just stripping away all of the layers that I had put on me by society, by, my family, by whatever. And on that journey, I feel like the more that I sort of stripped away the layers, the more it's kind of revealed who I am, what my purpose is. And as you say, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think that's what a lot of people are scared of, in a way, is that they don't want to see it, because once you see it, you then have to go after that. And that is terrifying.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because you might upset people,
Mm-hmm.
including the people that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really the biggest transformation that I've had is since moving to America, because, as I'm sure the listeners can hear, I am not American. I am English, and I moved out here 5 years ago or so now. to be with my now husband. And that really kind of created an opportunity for me to grow, because I was away from the people that I grew up with. I was away from the environment that I grew up with, and I was put in a new environment, and I could literally be anybody who I wanted to be. It's that kind of alchemizing of your circumstances that you were talking about, you know. I was able to change that. But then I bumped up into various different challenges along the way. And I talk about some of those challenges in Reclaim the Rebel, about having a very loud inner mean girl, and not feeling like I fit in. And, you know, on that journey, I discovered more about myself. I dove deeper. I've, you know, discovered a whole different area of, you know, spirituality that opened my eyes to, oh wow, okay, this is what I was looking for when I was growing up. And I went to church schools when I was a kid, but it didn't quite resonate with me. I was like, there's something, but this doesn't quite resonate. I'm not sure, like I need to put this on ice, because this isn't really gelling with me. And then when I kind of came out here and started to be exposed to different things, different ways of thinking, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, this feels good to me. And I feel like it was really a path to that. Now, my biggest aha moment in terms of my what I do with women and how I support women is realizing how powerful our menstrual cycle is. And that only happened when I came off the pill after 10 or more years of being on the pill. And that created a whole new level of appreciation for my body, realization for how powerful that menstrual cycle is, how it reconnects us to our intuition, the cycles of nature. And that was, you know, that was huge. And that really came about because honestly, I was running out of my prescription, and I couldn't get to see a nurse and before I, you know, renewed. And I was like, I've been thinking about coming off the pill for a while. Maybe I'm gonna see how this goes. And I did. And oh my gosh, what an experience. Like, it really did deepen my relationship with my body. And so, yeah, I guess it's really a collection of experiences, as opposed to like one thing that cracked me open. How about you? Like, do you feel like there was one moment, or was it more the journey for you in terms of realizing how powerful you are and really kind of connecting to yourself again and your deeper purpose?
It was definitely a moment. Like I said before, I had already begun doing some inner work prior to the moment that I'm going to share with you all in just a little. So I'd already started I was already on my journey to self-healing, but like you said, like you can always feel when there are blocks and you're like, I can't quite get past this. I don't understand this. I don't understand why I feel so stuck. And for those of you who have listened to the show, I talk in depth about my grandmother and how powerful and pivotal she was in my life. She was more than my grandmother. She was my mother. You know, she was my secret holder. She was, you know, my sounding board. She was my friend. She was so many things to me. And she taught me so much throughout my life. And it's funny because actually today is at her actual birthday. And so it caused me to reflect on so many different things. When I woke up this morning, and I was in tears. And my husband, you know, he said, you know, don't cry, don't be sad, because, you know, she was preparing you for this, right? So all my life, I always knew I was different. Always knew I was different. Everybody around me always knew I was different. I was always called loud. I was always called too much. I was I never listened to anything anybody had to say. I was always a rebel, okay? I'm always done whatever I felt like I wanted to do. And I always would buck the system. So if you told me to do something, I want to know why. Like, why are you asking me to do this? And I'm a logical thinker. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And, I grew up in the South. And so in the South, in the United States, we do not question our elders. We are supposed to do what we're told to do. End of discussion. And I got in a lot of trouble because I was not a conformist. I never have been. And so for so long, I was taught to dim that light. However, my grandmother, she was the only one who allowed me to live out loud. Her and her sister, my auntie, she recently transitioned as well. And they would allow me to be me. I wasn't too much. It was okay. Just be you. So I always knew I was different, but it wasn't until last October. My grandmother and I both, our birthdays are in October, and they're a couple weeks apart. And last October, I got a chance to spend some time with just her, just me and her. And we got a chance to talk about so much stuff. And she revealed so many things to me. I found out that I come from a long line of seers. I come from a long line of empaths. And so like all these lights just start flashing like oh
I
my
can
God,
imagine.
like this is where this comes from. Yes.
Yes.
And I have a bit of clairvoyance, and I can remember seeing things before they were going to happen as a kid. And I remember it absolutely petrified the crap out of me. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell anyone about it because, again, I didn't want to be perceived as though I was practicing witchcraft. So I kept these things hidden, and I kept them a secret for all this time. So right after Thanksgiving last year, my grandmother passed, and I'll never forget the conversations that just her and I had. And I realized now that she was preparing me to be the outcast. She was preparing me to be the black sheep because it's my job. I've been tasked to change some things. And I have with my own family, with my own children. I have created a completely different path. And because of that, my kids they are like the most amazing people. Like, I'm not saying they're the most amazing kids. They're the most amazing people because they are free thinkers. They're able to think for themselves. They don't do things because we tell them to do it. We have a conversation. There's a dialogue. Like, they're allowed to ask questions. Like, Mom, I don't really understand this. Okay, well, let me explain it. And it has served them so well because they've been allowed to question and think for themselves instead of just do what you're told. So that's the long answer to it. But yes, when I lost my grandmother, that was the catalyst for me. I've been changing ever since. And I am so happy and so proud of the woman that I have become today. I really am.
And I'm sure she would be very proud too. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Now, I do want to explore more about what you were saying about your cycle, your menstrual cycle, and how you started to realize that integration there. I'd like to hear more about your experience because I don't have cycles anymore. I had a hysterectomy 6 years ago because my cycles were very hard. They were very, very difficult. And unfortunately, it's a genetic pathology that has kind of carried over from generation to generation. Being an herbalist, I've been able to help my daughter not suffer as much. Like she is just like, Mom, are you like magic? Because
You're
I'm
like,
not
yes.
feeling any pain anymore.
Yes, I am magic.
And I'm just so glad you're feeling better. But share with us a little bit about your experience and about that interconnectivity with your menstrual cycle and then that whole thing.
Yeah, and I think the menstrual cycle and witchcraft are two things that are both seen as taboo to talk about.
Yes.
And just like you, I love talking about like rebelling and doing stuff that I've been told not to do. So I'm like, okay, let's talk about this as well. And really, like, I think the experience is very similar with women in terms of, being in their power and also the menstrual cycle, because we're sort of told a very limited amount at school. We're getting a very limited amount of knowledge. And a lot of us experience pain or discomfort or irregular cycles. And we go to our doctor and we say, what's going on? This doesn't feel good. And the doctor goes, oh, let me write you a prescription. Here you go. And we go, oh, okay. And we just take it. And we take that medicine, in inverted commas, and we just don't question it. And we just go along and like, oh, okay, this is fixed. This is convenient because I don't have acne anymore, or I'm not getting as painful or heavy periods or whatever it is. And this was the case for me because when I was a teenager, as we talked about last time, I had an eating disorder, 10 years. And with that, I lost my period. And with that also, I compromised my bone health because essentially estrogen, which is one of your main female hormones, is protective for your bones. It helps your bones stay strong. And my body wasn't producing enough estrogen to support my bone health. And so to help support my bones, the doctor put me on birth control because I wasn't getting a natural period. I wasn't, producing the reproductive hormones that my body needed me to produce in order to stay healthy in terms of my bones. So I got put on the pill when I was about 20. And this was very convenient because it was allowing me to not fully listen to my body. So whilst I recovered from my eating disorder and I was, having a more balanced approach to nurturing my body, I wasn't really sure if my body was fully recovered because I wasn't getting a period every month. Like the pill doesn't give you a period. It gives you a false period every month because you're getting artificial hormones. And so I was kind of in this just going along very nicely. And then I came across the work when I was actually publishing Reclaim the Rebel. I came across the work of a woman called Lisa Lister. She is a fellow witch, and she wrote a book called Witch. And in it, she talks about the power of the menstrual cycle, and she has other amazing works that I have read all of them, and I recommend all of them, all about the power of the menstrual cycle. And I thought, oh, wow, I wish I knew this earlier. And the more I delved in, and that really started sort of me exploring and diving into female, the menstrual cycle, female hormone health, and really how we can support our bodies in a natural, holistic way. So, for example, via herbs, via the food that we put in our bodies. And as I say, like it got to the end of last year where my prescription was coming up for renewal. And I think this was the divine intervention from the universe or something, because I could not get that prescription fulfilled by the time I needed it. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. I mean, I haven't had a period really for most of my life, because when I was 14, maybe I had a couple and then I became sick. So I was like, okay, let's just see what happens. And would you believe it? 28 days later, I had a period. I had a natural period, and I cried. I phoned my mum up and I was like, Mum, guess what? She was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible, considering how long I had been on birth control, how much I had physically abused my body as a teenager. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And that really kind of, again, made me appreciate my body at a whole new level and want to help other women really reconnect to their menstrual cycle. Because through my journey, I realized how little we're told, the misinformation out there, some women, have had really difficult cycles through a lot of their life, and that's really held them back. And I don't want women to have to deal with that when we can actually, there's a solution that doesn't involve medication for most women. There's some women, okay, that's different. But I think this is a whole nother area of empowerment that we have been disconnected from, is the power of the menstrual cycle. And I notice every month there are times when I have more energy, and there are times when I'm more connected with my intuition, and there are times where I am really moody. I am the traditional witch, and I need to knot people. And that is really powerful because I have that information, and so I can plan out my month according to that, in terms of, how I'm going to nurture my body, in terms of the movement that I do, in terms of my work schedule. So at the moment, like, I'm right in the middle of my cycle, so I'm ovulating, so I'm like, hey, I'm going to be out in the world. Yay! Let's chat. Let's hang out. So it really does change your life, because you can work with yourself as opposed to fighting against it. And I think that's what made me become a nutrition in the first place, is that I saw so many women, including myself, fighting against our bodies and what it was costing us in terms of our physical health as well as our mental health. And I think by tapping into the power of our menstrual cycle and actually syncing with our bodies and our hormones and our unique female physiology, because we are not many men, we can really reclaim a lot of our personal power and just strengthen the relationship that we have with our incredible bodies. So, yeah.
You know what? It's so funny because, like, I would have done anything to have known about this when I was still having cycles, because I am one of those women who has always had difficult periods. When I was having periods, like mine started around 13, and I mean, I'd be in bed for days because from the onset, they were heavy, they were painful. And toward the end, right before I had my hysterectomy, I remember my doctor, and I love my doctor. He is an amazing, amazing doctor. Like, I'm be honest, I moved and my doctor is over an hour away, but I still drive back to him because I trust him just that much. And I remember him helping me try everything we could, because he knew I did not want to have a hysterectomy, because it made me feel like I was going to be less of a woman, because I'm like, okay, I don't have any other parts. So, and he said, we'll try everything and that'll be our absolute last resort, because when it begins to affect your life to the point to where you cannot have a normal life, he was like, if you're done having kids, what are we doing here? And I remember the moment that I knew it was time, I physically couldn't get out of bed. My husband had to pick me up and carry me. That's how much pain I was in. And, even though I've had that experience, and I don't have a uterus anymore, but my daughter, every time she has her cycle, I have all the symptoms, because I still have my ovaries. So I still go through a cycle right along with her. So, like, I was laughing when you were saying that, because we're both kind of at the same spot, and like, we're both kind of at the same. and like, so like, our time for our actual cycle has just passed. And so now we're both kind of drained. We're both like kind of really tired. So, and I'm going to say probably in like a week or two, like, we're going to have so much energy, like energy is going to be like on 10,000, and I'm going to be so creative. I'm going to be able to do every single thing. And it's funny because I don't think that I realized any of these things when I was actually having menstrual cycles. I didn't become aware of these things until after the fact that I don't physically have the cycles anymore. And, I remember that, like, my daughter's 17, and she has been suffering with like really heavy, hard periods. And they tried the whole pill thing, and she didn't like it. She didn't like it. And so she just organically stopped taking it. And you made a very valid point about when we go into Western medicine, it's usually it's not a solution to the issue. It's usually just a band-aid.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of masks other things. And we miss so much because we're like kind of numbing the actual issue instead of addressing it and dealing with it. Again, there are those of us that absolutely have to adapt to modern medicine. But I decided that for my daughter that I was going to take a step further to see what I could do to help her. And that's when I've always been into holistic healing and herbal remedies. And I recently, in like the last 6 months, had just got really deep into it. And so every month I make her an infused tea.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, like, she has energy for days, she's bouncing off the walls. She's like, oh, I don't want cramps. Like, I ain't got no cramps. I'm like, girl, I should have figured this out for myself. But I'm so grateful. And I'm going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a reel because I actually created a short reel of me making some of it. And so I'm going to release that to the public so everybody can get that because it's really simple. It's just a few ingredients, but it'll change your world, y'all. It'll change your world. So when you decided on the name of this book, like, what role did the current situation, like with your cycles and all that, what role did that play in it, or did it play a role in it at all?
That's a really good question, and I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I feel like it was less about my menstrual cycle and more about the season of life that I was in. Because, yes, we have an element of our cyclic nature as a woman is the menstrual cycle, but as you said, you can not have a cycle and still experience the cycles of being a woman. We are cyclic beings. And one of those cycles is, what stage of life are you in? So are you in the stage of life that is kind of like you're in a spring, which does correspond with a menstrual cycle? Yes, you can map it onto that. But, you know, you can have kind of like that phase where you sort of feel like you're sort of like starting anew and you're just kind of like going out into the world and things are starting to grow, but it's really planting the seeds. Or you can kind of like be going into your summer where you're bold and you're bright and you're like, yes, let's get out into the world. Like I'm launching a podcast, or I'm launching a book, or whatever it is. And then there's kind of the autumn and the winter. And I was really in the autumn phase of my cycle, as it were, whereby I had a really big year before with the launch of Reclaim the Rebel, and I was seeing a lot of clients and supporting a lot of women. And then several things happened that year that really kind of knocked me off course. And long story short, I share a little bit about some of those things in Reclaim the Witch, but essentially it caused me to get into, rather than the summer of my cycle, it was kind of the autumn where things were changing and the truth speaker kind of came out of me, and I really wanted to speak my truth. And I think that's really what autumn represents. It's that kind of like the wild woman. It's kind of, we're changing. It's kind of like perimenopause and menopause, where sort of like we're experiencing these changes and we're kind of breaking out of the soft feminine mother role that maybe we've been in. And I really felt that. And so I was like, okay, I'm being called to really write this book and speak my truth. And I literally, I kid you not, I sat down 3 or 4 days in a row and it poured from me onto my laptop, and I just kept writing. And then when I like walked away from the computer to get a snack or to get lunch or a drink, I was like, oh, I'm getting a download. And I'd be in the kitchen, I'm like, oh, I need to come back. I'd be typing again. And I had the first draft pretty much written in the space of 3 or 4 days. And it was an insane, just like amount of just channeling that came through me, that inspired me to write that. So it wasn't necessarily the menstrual cycle, where I was in my menstrual cycle. It was more about what season of life I was in. Although I do talk a lot about how to tap into the power of the menstrual cycle and how that relates to the seasons around us and the moon cycle and all of that good stuff in Reclaim the Witch. But I think what inspired the book was the fact that I was in that autumn phase, that kind of wild woman truth teller. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, your sacral chakra was wide open at that time. It was
Yes.
wide open. Because y'all, for those who don't know, the sacral chakra, it is responsible for your creativity. So anytime that you feel a block creatively, that sacral chakra is blocked. But like hers was wide open, and I get those bursts too. Like I get like one of the things that I've always talked about is, by nature, I am an introvert. And so I am more of an observer. I don't like a lot of interaction. Like I kind of like to sit back and just watch. And I always hear more than people think that I do because I don't talk a lot. And it's so odd and so funny because for as much as I talk, I like you had a podcast, but you don't like talking. Like that's that doesn't make any sense. But you know, my podcast it's a way of me opening up and me being me and allowing my voice to be heard. But I can't stand social media, y'all. I hate it. And anybody who follows me on social media, I am the most inconsistent person that you ever want to see on that social media. In person, like in real life, like I'm as consistent as a clock. Like I'm going to do, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And if I said I'm going to do it at a certain time, I'm going to do it at that time. Okay. But social media drains me so much. And so I hate showing up there. But in recent times, like I could tell that my sacral chakra was wide open because like, man, that camera would go fired up so fast. I'm like, oh, record this. Oh, record that. Oh,
Yes.
record this. My kids are like, really? Mom, like, could you like move this tripod? Like, you in the way. It's ridiculous. Like every moment I'm able to find and get a creative spark. So I love that piece because when that creativity hits, everybody better watch out and just let you do your thing.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful because it's something that you can't plan necessarily. And
Exactly.
I feel like that's kind of the problem that we're all feeling intuitively as women, is that we've been taught to do like the very masculine, guy-centered, linear approach where we're like machines, where we're working consistently and we're like just going along like do exactly the same. But we're not like that. Like we get sparks of creativity, we get sparks of like, I don't know, needing to articulate our truth, we get sparks of, you know, intuitive downloads. Like I think, and it's really great that kind of we're both honoring that, and more women are learning to honor that, because I feel like, you know, when we don't, that's when that tension that we feel kind of comes up, and we kind of like go, well, what's wrong with us? Why can't we do this? Why can't we be consistent on social media?
Yeah.
And that's not the point. The point is working with what you got, right?
Yeah.
Like, as
Yeah, it
opposed to
is.
going, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's about realistically finding out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like really truly finding out who you are and what sets your soul on fire. What could you do? What could you talk about for hours on end without it ever getting old? That is you. That's who you are. That's what you're supposed to be leaning into. And it wasn't until I really began to lean into and start opening up parts of me and saying, hey, I'm a herbalist. I become a herbalist. Like, and this is what I do. This is how I take care of me. This is how I can take care of my family. I don't care. You might see me on social media with my crystals all around the place. You're going to see me with sage flying about because I ain't got time. I need to clear all that energy off my timeline anyway. You
Get
might
out the way. I need a stage.
Exactly. Exactly. You're gonna see me doing these things.
Yeah.
And these are the things that I discovered about myself that was always there, but I just didn't want to allow that person out for fear of how other people would perceive me. And the inconsistency came from the fact that I was not being me.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's that shadow work of me realizing that it doesn't really have anything to do with social media. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody on social media. It has to do with me and the fact that I was not living in my truth. And so it made me uncomfortable. When we're not living in our truths, we're uncomfortable because we're afraid of being exposed. And you can't keep up that facade but for so long if that's not really who you are.
Mm.
I'm just saying, y'all, like, that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. So, a lot of people don't understand that witchcraft is a tool for self-discovery, healing, and self-care. It absolutely is. It allows an individual to tap into their inner strengths and connect with the natural world. Grounding for me, I have to be grounded all the time. Like,
What's your sign? What's
I
your
am a
sun sign?
Libra,
Oh,
constant balance.
yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I'm a Taurus, so I 100% resonate with grounding. Like that is
Yes.
my go-to because I'm an earthy
Yep.
forest being that needs to be in the earth. So yes,
Yep.
grounding is
Yep.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm an air sign. And so everything has to be kind of light and just kind of go with the flow. Like I can't do a whole bunch of, yeah, over here. I can't do all that. And anytime I can always feel, it's funny because when I did my, tarot cards, my oracle cards. And it's funny because I just started doing those not too long ago. And I have two sets. And there's one I haven't quite gotten into just yet because it's a little more complex, but I'm working on it. But the ones that I've been working with a lot, there was a card that just kept popping up and it kept saying, you're ungrounded, you're ungrounded, you're ungrounded, you're ungrounded. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm going outside. I'm going outside. I'm gonna meditate. I got it. Like, and it's so funny because if we really, really tune in and we listen, we can get all the guidance that we need. All the guidance is there. And I remember, like, I want to say about a month ago, a butterfly flew into my garage, into my house. And if you know anything about butterflies, you know butterflies do not fly indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how she got in there, but I thought she was dead because she was laying in my garage in front of my car and she was laying on her back. So I assumed that she was dead. And I was just like, and I remember I felt so bad and so sad. And I was like, this isn't even like me. I don't even know. It's a butterfly. Like it, but it just affected me so profoundly. And I said, okay, I said, I'm going to go in the house and I'm going to get the broom and I'm going to like sweep her up and I'm going to just go and lay her in the grass. By the time I came back, somehow she was flipped onto her feet. And her wing looked like, I don't know if, as a matter of fact, I think my garage was just too hot because my garage is sweltering in the summertime and it was really hot. And I knew that if I didn't get the butterfly out, that it was going to die. And I couldn't let that happen. And it's funny because I was actually in a rush. I had somewhere to be, but I was like, I cannot leave without getting the butterfly outside. So I took the broom, but like I was too scared to let it touch me because y'all, I'm scared of bugs. Okay. I've jumped out of moving cars because of a bug. So we you
We need
can't
to hear
touch
that
me.
story at some point.
Oh, wow. But I went and I got the broom and I just took the broom and I just kind of guided the butterfly. I tried to get it on the broom, but it wasn't working. So I just kind of guided the butterfly out. And the second it got outside, it just flew away. And I remember I was like, that was the strangest thing. And I looked it up and it said that that's someone from the other side communicating with you, letting you know, I'm here. I see you. You're not by yourself. And when I found that out, I remember I cried buckets because I already knew who it was. I already knew. And I think people discount these things so often. They discount nature so often because, again, so many of us are so disconnected from the earth and disconnected from our roots because of how fast-paced society is. And again, it's frowned upon. It's
Right.
frowned upon. But this has been such a profound spiritual experience for me. Have you had any experiences like that?
I love this because I actually, when you were talking about your experience with a butterfly, I had a similar experience. So butterflies are actually one of my spirit animals, and I had a dream. Essentially, when I was in Starbucks and I put in my order, there was like a ton of people in line, and I finally got to put in my order, and I placed my order, and it was a fairly simple order. And the woman on the other side said, is that all? And I said, yes, thank you so much. What's your name? And she said, Cho. And I was like, oh, okay, Cho, thank you so much. And then when I woke up, I was like, I just knew that was significant, just like you knew that
Mm-hmm.
that butterfly was significant to you. And I think that knowing is so important. So I
Yes.
looked up what the meaning of Cho was, and in Japanese it means butterfly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I just literally communicated with spirit.
My
And
God.
yeah,
Wow.
I was like,
Wow.
oh.
Wow.
And there's moments where you just can't, they're just so magical, and it just
Yes.
defies all logic and all
Yes.
reasoning. And just by kind of like following that knowing, just like you, I got something. Like I received this kind of, to me, it was like a reassurance that I'm not alone. The universe has got me. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're okay. And I
Yeah.
think like just tapping into those kind of like little nudges and little kind of like moments where we know something, like even with our bodies, I see this all the time with my clients where they go, oh, I felt really one client the other week said, I felt really called to eat more fruits and vegetables. And she had a blood test later that week and found out that her white blood cell count was really high. And I was like, well, that makes sense that your body was craving fruits and vegetables
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to help with your immune system.
Yep.
And she was just like, oh, yeah, my body just like it knew. It's like, yes, it's amazing,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
oh, so powerful when we can just tune into that internal knowing and block out the external stuff, the craziness that's going on that we're kind of like told we need to like listen to this. No. Listen from within, and then you'll get all you need.
Yes, I agree. I think that a lot of us, from the time that we are small children, our intuition, our natural intuitions are like disrupted by different events, sometimes it's trauma, and sometimes it's just simply being told, well, no, that's not right. You can't say that. You can't think that. You know what I mean? And I just kind of feel like that a lot of us have our intuition interrupted and tampered with almost when we are in those developmental stages of our life somewhere. Would you agree with that?
100%. It's all about self-trust, right? We come to this planet having 100% self-trust, 100% unconditional love for ourselves and our bodies. And it's through our experiences that kind of erodes that. And so it's all about sort of remembering and reclaiming that self-trust. And I can just think of so many examples in my life where you sort of go, oh, like that caused me, that story was something that was given to me, and that caused me to not trust myself.
Yep. All the time. And it causes you to not trust your own intuition. Like even as an adult, you'll know something. There'll just be something about a situation that just doesn't feel quite right, and you'll second guess it. And every time you do that, it goes in the direction you don't necessarily want it to do that. I've had that happen so many times. Now, let's clear up some myths about witches.
Oh, yes. Let's do that.
Like, I want to clear that up because I think that, like, we have talked so much about these different things and different elements that I feel like that people will start to kind of get the gist, like, okay, all right, so like it is not really what I thought it was in the first place, but let's get into some of the myths. All right, so witches aren't evil and they don't ride broomsticks
No.
or wear pointy hats unless we want to, like
Halloween's coming up.
well, so all right, can you get into a few of the myths that you have heard and let's debunk those?
I think a big one that just kind of came up for me is it's dangerous. Women like witches are dangerous. And I think that really caused me to fear being a witch. And I actually share a little bit about that as well in Reclaim the Witch, because I had dreams as a kid where I was being chased by this evil witch. And she wanted to take me away. And I think at that point I was maybe 7, 8 years old. And, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier about, you know, the stories that we get told, I had already been programmed with this story that witches are dangerous and evil. And I was scared. And on reflection, I was scared of being that powerful woman, of being a witch. And I think that, you know, witches are dangerous is such a myth that was perpetuated from the beginning of sort of the patriarchy, kind of demonizing witches, because a powerful woman, yes, it is dangerous to the patriarchy, to the structures that would be threatened by a powerful woman. And so it's not 100% a myth, I guess, but it's not the danger that we've been, again, told and sold. It's not something to be scared of, that you are powerful. It's something to celebrate and something to tap into.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that a woman is automatically viewed as a witch anytime she steps into and reclaims her own power, her own voice, her own thought processes, you know, instead of sitting back and just allowing people to kind of do as they will and try to make everybody happy, try to please everybody. And meanwhile, she's screaming on the inside. She's positively miserable. And I don't think that there's anything evil about reclaiming your own voice and about choosing you, essentially, because that's what you're doing when you step into, you know, your own power and your own inner strength. That's what you're doing, is choosing you. One myth that I would like to debunk is that witches are voodoo priestesses. Okay, y'all. All right, I'm gonna just say this. I don't necessarily know what a voodoo priestess is all the way, but I know it ain't a witch. That's two totally different things. Okay, but from what I understand, voodoo priestesses do evil roots and cast evil spells in order to get their desired results. Someone who is a witch, I'm gonna just be honest, I ain't never cast no spells. I don't know nothing about none of that. None of that. I don't be in here mixing up nothing, in here wiggling fingers over top of paper, and I don't do any of that, just so y'all know. That's not what we're doing.
No pins, no dolls. Yeah.
No, none of that. I think that, and I think those two things get meshed together. And I think that's where the myth that witches are evil and that they're dangerous and that they want to hurt people come from. And that is definitely a misconception, because at the end of the day, all I want is to live in my own power and to be happy and to be at peace. And this is how I have found it. I find it through my crystal work because they help to keep me grounded. I find it through my deep meditations, my affirmations, my manifestations, my oracle cards. When I make the herbal remedies that take care of my family, that keep us from getting sick. Listen, when I tell y'all my golden milk, we swear by golden milk because it works.
Yeah.
Period. It works. And so, the same conversation that people have about, CBD or marijuana, if it comes from nature, if it's something that I can get naturally, how can it be evil or bad?
Right. Mother
Like,
Nature
and
has
I don't
gifted it to us.
exactly. We all originally, that is how we survived, was off the land.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Off the land instead of, so when you start veering away from the more processed foods and stuff, like the way your body feels, it feels absolutely incredible. You have more energy, you are sleeping better, you have more clarity because you don't have all of those extra preservatives and all of those extra ingredients that you really don't need, but they put in the food in order to preserve it for it to sit on the shelf longer, right? So how is you choosing to put something more natural into your body? Is that evil? I'm just saying,
Mm.
like, things that are not understood are often demonized.
Yeah, because people are afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a person can, yes, there are people with negative, bad intentions in the world,
Absolutely.
but there are so many people with good intentions. And I think it really does come down to intention when it comes down to practicing some of the things that we talked about today.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a witch's intention is to use the tools that we talked about in a positive, productive way for herself and her loved ones and for the community as a whole.
I agree. And I think that if people kind of just take the time to understand that piece, it won't be such a woo woo topic like we're talking about goblins or something, like, y'all.
I have released a YouTube short yesterday, and I had a comment from a guy that said, witches don't exist. And I just went, oh, that, like, not in a condescending way, but, I think it's just that lack of understanding that, yes, like, there is so much that we all don't understand. But if we
Yes.
just understood, that archetype, that a witch does exist, but it's not what you think.
Right. Again, whatever is not understood is demonized. And like you said, yes, with everything, people have ill intentions. Look at religion down the line. There are people with evil intentions in every single religion. So does that automatically make that religion bad? No, it doesn't. It is just, people are going to be people, right? And so whatever intention that a person has in their heart, they're going to exercise that intention regardless of what realm they're in, whether it's people working with kids. You've got some really dumpster trash heaps trying to work with children and they're hurting children, but then you've got some amazing folks that are really putting it out there and really pouring into the youth to give them what they need so that they can go out into the world and be productive members of society. And I think that if everybody kind of sat back and was a little bit more mindful of judgment, I think that we can often find ourselves in judgment. And that's one of the things that one of the yogic principles that I have practiced very heavily over the past year is non-judgment. Because when you can sit and say, you know what, I may not like it, but perhaps this is. As a matter of fact, my daughter and I, we do fashion shows together. We model together. And and we were on a road trip. We were on our way to a rehearsal this past weekend, and we were talking about there's been a girl at school bullying her. And my daughter got into a little more detail about the young lady. And she said, I think somebody bullied her at some point. And I said to her, you're 100% correct. I said, typically a bully has been bullied. I said, and they're trying to reclaim their power by trying to make others feel small. I said, I'm not saying that what she's doing to you is okay. I said, but she doesn't have what you have. And so, I really was so proud of my daughter for that bit of empathy. And what a lot of people don't understand is that my daughter has autism. And for her to be able to grasp that, you know what, somebody's probably been picking on her. And so that's why she's picking on me. Not saying that her picking on me is okay. But, I think that, we should show her a little bit of grace, and you should. And you've got to start showing people grace, because if you sat back and didn't practice judgment at the person who was rude to you in the grocery store or who cut you off in traffic, to be honest, you don't know, the person cutting you off in traffic could be hauling ass to the hospital because their loved one is on their deathbed. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what's happening to the lady in the grocery store who was a butthole to you. She could have just left the hospital with her premature baby in the hospital. She can't take her baby home. You don't understand what I mean? So trying to practice a little more grace, and trying to understand and not be as so quick to judge and so quick to, puff up and become angry. It would benefit not just you, but other people too. Because I've had people say, you know what, I'm sorry, I was just having a bad day and I didn't mean to be rude to you. And I'm like, it's life. It's all good. I know I didn't do anything to you, and it's okay, but I appreciate you saying that. And they were like, but you were the only person who were nice and didn't react. That's because I used to be that person. I used to be that person who, because I was so unhappy and I was so angry about so many things, that I was taking it out on the world. And it wasn't nice, y'all. It wasn't nice. It wasn't their fault that I wasn't living my truth. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I think that's so profound that your daughter realized that at 17.
Mm-hmm.
That is just incredible. That level of awareness and ability to show compassion is unbelievable. It's just so needed, because what I see a lot, and I don't know if you see this a lot also, is on social media, where people we all have the same goal and same intention of that, what we were talking about, elevating the energy in the world and providing good. But because we come from different perspectives, sometimes it ends up as women attacking other women, or people attacking other people. And I feel like just that little bit extra level of awareness and compassion and space for other people and potentially different viewpoints could make the world such a better place.
It really could. It really could. And it's so funny because, y'all, when I leaned more into my witchiness, that's when I began to be more compassionate. That's when I began to be able to see with more clarity. I was able to see what was in front of me. Most people can't see what's in front of them. Again, I am speaking from experience. So don't take this as judgment. Take this as someone who has lived this and who has done the very same thing, who could not see what was in front of me if it hit me on the nose.
Yep, I'm the same. 100%.
And when I began to lean into that, I began to find a more compassionate, more emotional, and in fact, more feminine side of myself when I began to lean into that. I was so heavily into my masculine energy before I began to lean into it. Ooh, man. I'm be honest, I don't know how my husband put up with me for so long.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this, because I feel like I'm nodding along here because I'm same. And I think my husband is more in terms, naturally he has more feminine energy. Is your husband, do you think that because I feel like you sort of naturally gravitate towards people who balance you out. So do you think that kind of maybe is the case for your husband as well? As he kind of like has he got those feminine qualities that maybe balance that?
It's so funny because he actually does not. He is a kind of a man's man type of guy. And so we butted heads a lot.
Uh-huh. I
It's
see.
like, hold on now, wait a minute. Last time I checked, I'm the only man in this relationship. And so, like, it was so refreshing to him to watch me kind of start to melt.
Mm.
And he was like, he said to me, he said, when I first met you, I saw this already when I first met you, is just that you weren't letting it out. You weren't letting it show. He said, you let it show sometimes when it was just me and you. And he said, and that made me fall for you even deeper. And he was like, but now this is just who you are all the time. And he's just like, I just can't get enough of it. And I'm like, yeah, I could tell. Like, back off, buddy.
I feel like, if anybody is in any doubt about stepping into their witchy side, you just sold it. Like, if you want your
Y'all.
husband to or partner to go wild for you,
Yes.
just step into your witchiness and
Yes.
watch the
Yes. And
magic
it's
happen.
funny. And it's funny because he said, it's because you have leaned into it, because it's who you are, right? So, if this is not who you are, then of course it's going to be awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable and you're not going to want to do this. And remember, this looks different for everybody. Like mine, like I said, people who've known me forever probably think I'm having a midlife crisis because like, I have been walking runways and I have been traveling all over the place. As a matter of fact, in a few months, I'm going to Panama solo. Like, I, I'm going to go to Carnival and I'll be posting some stuff once
Please
I go.
do.
Like, yes, it's like this is something that I never in a million years would have done before. And my husband is like, I love it. He said, it's you living yourself. You wake up every day, you're you. You go to sleep every night, you're you. And I can definitely tell that people who interact with me frequently on social media, they see it.
Mm.
Especially, and like some of the women that I've become friends with so many people on social media. They're like, girl, like I'm watching you and I just
More.
love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They're like, I'm
Yeah.
loving it. Like I'm watching you morph and it's so fun to watch. And I'm like, y'all, how much fun you think I'm having doing it?
And you know what? I feel like this is huge. Like, the more that you lean into it and the more that you do that, you're providing permission for other people to do that,
Exactly.
do the same thing. You are leading the way.
Exactly. And that's what I'm supposed to do. I never wanted that responsibility. But the thing about those of us who have this responsibility, you ain't asked for it, but it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
There's
you were given it.
somebody, yes, there's somebody somewhere waiting for you to do what you were called to do. And so it's very profound that you said that because, yes, there have been a lot of people waiting for me to do what I was called to do. And I've tried to do so many different things. Like I said, in the LinkedIn room I had yesterday with my friend Erin, we talked about this. She was like, I've watched her do so many different things until she finally found like that's your sweet spot right there. That's where you're supposed to be at. And she said, in the way that she shows up, it's just so effortless and it's so authentic and enthusiastic. And that's because it's just me being me. I am showing y'all my crazy puppy that I just got. That puppy is ridiculous. Like she's absolutely nonsensical. Okay. She does some of the craziest stuff, but that's my everyday life. I'm showing y'all what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm chasing my kids all over the country because I have a kid who's a amateur boxer. I've got two who play football, and my daughter, she's into modeling and acting, and I'm just all over the place. But I am not sacrificing me in the process.
What a life! Like,
Right? Oh my God. What
yeah.
are you? Exactly. And so anytime I start feeling in the dumps about anything, I'm like, look around, ma'am. because you are getting to live your best life on your terms, but you're still getting to do all the other things to take care of the kids. All like you have a full, happy life. There's nothing to be ungrateful about.
Mic drop moment. I
Yes,
don't have
y'all.
anything to say other than yes.
Definitely a light bulb moment. So as we wrap up today's episode, it is important to remember that witches are a diverse and beautiful part of our spiritual landscape. So whether you're a seasoned witch or someone curious to learn, we hope you've gained some insight into the world of witchcraft. Now, can you tell everybody where they can find the book? Like, has it released? Is it going to release? Pre-order? Like all of that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So by the time this releases, it will probably be officially published. So Reclaim the Witch publishes on October 31st, 2023. Nice. And she is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the places where you can get your favorite books. And if you head to reclaimthewitch.com, I also have a little goodie bag of complimentary tools and resources for you to claim as you progress on your journey to reclaiming your inner witch.
Oh my goodness, y'all, that is going to be something so yummy, because I'm going to tell y'all, I'm going over there to get my little goodie bag and wait on the release of the book, because I read, I did not have time to, obviously the book hasn't released yet, and I didn't have time to read Reclaim the Rebel in its entirety. However, when I tell you guys that just the excerpt is so powerful, y'all, and it will start you on your journey of, okay, what is it that I really want? So y'all, I hope that this was so fulfilling and empowering for you all, because it was for me. I mean, it was an amazing conversation. Like, I took so much from it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on this mystical journey. And until next time, stay curious, stay open-minded, and keep lifting each other up. Blessed be.